Hello, coffee lovers. Jose with Third Day Coffee Seguin. It's 1900. It's Friday, and that means it's time for God Country Coffee. We have an amazing guest tonight. I'm actually a little. I was telling the lady who reached out, Julie, that I'm a little bit starstruck by all the accomplishments that he has done, all the things that he's doing for veterans with the organization he belongs to. And so, before we get started with that, I do want to hit a couple of things. We are going to be looking for this coming week. We're going to launch our Christmas baskets for the year. We're only going to do 30 baskets. So, and then I believe that Marty the Moac is going to do, I believe he's going to do 20 baskets. And so we haven't worked all those logistical details out yet, but we'll have it for you this week. And so, as always, Frank or whoever's listening or whoever's watching, one of my usuals, will you please put the usual code in the comments, Delta-1, D-1. And that's the code for 10% off anything on the store. And it also is good for 20% on a monthly subscription. So that being said, let's see who's, thank you, brother. I appreciate you putting that on there already. And so our guest tonight is Tom Kilgannon, and he is the president of Freedom Alliance. And I'm not going to say much else because I've been doing so much reading since last night, since I got all the social media links from Julie, and I'm just going to let him, because I don't want to confuse anything at all. But without any further ado, here's our guest tonight, Tom Kilgannon. Hang on. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Jose, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am better than I deserve. That is absolutely certain. And
well, I want to tell you, thank you so much for having me on. I love coffee. I love our country, and I love our Lord. So I couldn't be happier to be with you. This is a great opportunity. You've got a wonderful audience, and the service you've given to our country, and the service you're providing through this podcast, putting veterans in touch with one another, putting great Americans in touch with one another, so that entrepreneurs can help each other out and provide mentorship. That's what it's all about, brother. Thank you for doing it, and I'm happy to be here. I'll just start out, if it's all right, by saying a little bit about me and the organization. I'm a Yankee. I grew up in New Jersey, so don't hold that against me, okay? But I moved to Virginia. I met a beautiful Southern lady, and I called my mom, told her I wasn't coming home, and you know the rest of that story. So we are. I've been with Freedom Alliance now for going on 24 years. I love it. It's an organization that is a military support organization. So we are out there helping veterans, helping military families, and helping the children of fallen and wounded heroes as best we can. I'm coming to you tonight from Tampa, Florida, where we were just at Veterans Memorial Park in Tampa, helping two amputees, honored veterans of the Operation Iraqi Freedom, giving them customized all-terrain wheelchairs. So it's an honor and a privilege to be with you. I love working with veterans because they are people from whom you can learn so much, and have such a great spirit and a great energy. They love our country. They've served it. They've seen so much of the world, so much of what life has to offer. They've gone overseas and represented us as well as any ambassador that we have. You all have put your lives on the line and confronted evil and come back to talk about it. So what could be better than spending your days with soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines? You all have great stories. You know the best cursed words, and I'm happy to be among you. So thanks for having me on.
Man, that's it's hard to follow that. I don't know how I'm gonna get through this interview with such a great guest. But thank you so much for that. It's an honor. I don't know who put that on there. Somebody just put Eric Kristen Cover said, I'm gonna put his so we can all see his comment here. Go Army, go Coffee, and go Jersey. All right, well, go Navy, because I was Navy, so go Navy, beat Army. But y'all have beat the pants off us the last couple of years, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's been tough for the Navy the last few years.
In fact, as I was, because what I usually do with my guests, I will Facebook stalk you a little bit to see if I can find any really unique pictures. And I came across one where you're standing between two midshipmen and two Army at one of the games. And
That's
so
right.
what was that all about?
Yeah, so Freedom Alliance, one of the events that we do each year, and it's coming up, and it's just a fantastic event. We do a weekend around the Army Navy game, and so we bring our supporters into town, and we have dinner, we have some seminars. We let them meet our scholarship students and some of the veterans that we help out, and we conclude the weekend by going to the Army Navy game. Usually it's held in Philadelphia. This year, in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of 9/11, it's being held at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. So coming up in a few weeks, myself and Colonel North and some of our supporters will be up there. Some rooting for Army, some rooting for Navy. I'm a civilian, so I just want a good game. And I try and keep the warring factions in their respective corners.
It's funny that you say that, because I was just on a podcast the other day with two former Army Rangers called Lounge with Legends, and we were talking about that, and I said, regardless of whether you're Navy like me or Army, or if you're a civilian, one thing that you have to absolutely respect is the fact that at the end of the game, the losing team goes up and sings their song with the winning team behind them.
That's
and
right.
Then when they're done, they go over to the other side and the losing team stands behind the winning team. And I said, what great respect they show each other, because regardless of who wins or what branch of service, everybody on that field knows that when they graduate, they're basically signing a blank check over to the country that could up to and include their life. And so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Jose, I'll tell you, I have had the great honor of being at now probably 20, 22 Army Navy games. And it is something I look forward to each year. It is a tremendous experience. If there's anybody in your audience who has not been to an Army Navy football game, you should really put it on your bucket list. Make sure you do it at least once, because it's more than a football game, as you said. And at the start of the game, you have all these pregame activities that are just incredible. You've got the Golden Knights and the Navy SEALs, if the weather's right, jumping out of airplanes, parachuting into the stadium. You've got flyovers of Blackhawks and fighter jets. You got the commander in chief at the game, doing the coin flip. You've got march on of the cadets and the midshipmen. It is just it's a pageant. It's a tremendous experience. It is a patriotic experience that everybody should be able to see at least once in their lives. And then, as you mentioned, and I got a little bit of a preview of this, being a Notre Dame fan, when Notre Dame and Navy played just a few weeks ago. Like you said, at the end of the game, the teams go over to their bands and their student bodies and sing their alma maters, and it is a tremendous display of sportsmanship. And if we had more of that in college athletics and professional athletics, respect for the flag, respect for your opponent, we'd all be a lot better off.
We are so aligned on those concepts. You're absolutely right, and it's hard, I guess, as a veteran, it's hard to understand sometimes. And I know you understand, even though you're not a veteran, you're definitely doing all kinds of amazing things for veterans and their families, but you're also doing stuff for Americans to understand. I'm going to let us get into that in a little bit, but you're right. We could all learn so much from seeing this kind of respect and the way they carry themselves. And, it's just hard sometimes to understand why the rest of the, country doesn't follow suit. But, all we can do is control our actions. And if we lead by example, then people will follow us. And so
Amen.
Hopefully that works out that way. And so I've got everything. So I was just trying to get it over to the other thing, but I've got people that are commenting now. So if you're listening and you have a question and you have something that you would like to ask Tom directly, please put it in the comments, and we'll pick it up and we'll ask those questions as we're going. I want to back up a little bit though, because I want to talk about Freedom Alliance. And so, and here's a little bit that I know. Oliver North started this in, I think you said 1990, Colonel North. And I watched the video on your website where he talks about it and how he really wanted to help these service members returning from combat, those that were wounded, and also the families of our fallen. And so there's a lot of organizations out there that only do stuff for Gold Star families. God bless them. There's a lot of organizations out there that only do stuff for wounded veterans, physically wounded, right? There's groups, there's all kinds of groups for all the different things that we have for our military service members coming back. But you guys are kind of like all inclusive. And so before we get into the meat of Freedom Alliance, I want to talk about, because I think your appointment in 27 really has a lot to do with what you're doing now. But in 2017, you were appointed by Speaker Paul Ryan to the National Commission of Military, National, and Public Service. Can we talk about that?
Sure, happy to. The commission was it was a creation of Congress. It was established through the National Defense Authorization Act of 2017, and so congressional leaders, as well as the President of the United States, each were able to appoint somebody to this commission. And the main charge of it was to study the selective service system, the draft, and this question of whether or not females should be included in the selective service process and be eligible to be drafted should a draft be instated. So Speaker Ryan appointed me to this commission. I was honored to be a part of it. I was one of 11 appointed commissioners, and we took 3 years. We studied that issue, but many others. We studied civics and patriotism and the idea of how do we get young people more involved in serving our country, whether that be through the military or through federal agencies or community agencies. How can we get more people working together and rolling up their sleeves and being a part of solutions at either the community, state, or federal level through the idea of service and the concept of service. And service comes in different forms. You know, it's you've got federal service, national service, where you've got these programs for young people to go out and do something in which they're giving back to their communities, and then you've got public service, which is of course federal employment, and a lot of that, people look at it as bureaucracy, and it is some of it, but there are also some very important jobs when you look at U.S. Marshals and FBI and intelligence agencies, the NSA, the CIA, the State Department, and we need to have talented people in those agencies. We need to have more conservatives serving at the federal level. And so we looked at and made over 150 recommendations to the Congress and the President of how we can attract more talent into the federal government and keep it. And if Jose, if you look now at what's going on, it is really it's really a shame, because one of the phrases that came up again and again when it came to military service was recruitment and retention. And what's going on now in the military is demoralizing and getting them out. And so we need to have the best and the brightest serving our country. And that's what this commission was all about.
That's amazing. I know we kind of touched on this just briefly before the show, but I was talking about how Benjamin Rush, he was one of the framers, and he talked about the three pillars that he believed our school system was supposed to be for our children, and it was to teach people to love and serve God, to love and serve their country, and to love and serve their family. And he's got the reasons why he put it in that order. And it's just it's actually really reassuring that the commission you were on is along those lines. We still need people to serve their country, and we need people to serve their community. And that's just, it's amazing that here, I'm glad that that's what that commission was set up for.
And you're only going to serve if you love what it is you're serving. If you love your country, if you love your community, if you feel tied to it, if you feel a sense of ownership and a sense of community and responsibility to one another. And I think sadly we're losing that. And we see that as it plays out in our day-to-day events across the country. But we've really got to get back to a point where we all respect the flag and what it stands for. We respect our national anthem. We respect our institutions, whether those be the courts or the Oval Office, the person who is presiding there, the institutions of government, federal, state, and local, because we have to have trust. Our elections, we have to have trust in the outcome of this, and we have to all be working in a common direction toward what it is that we want. And so if we can get back to that, we're going to put the country on the right track.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I don't know how we've gotten so far away from loving our flag and loving our country, but we have, and it's going to be left to people like yourself and us, and those of us who are in our veteran community, like Eric. Let me see if I can find his thing. I want to put it up here. He says it perfectly, and I think if we get back to this is where we need to be. One team, one fight, because we all are on the same team. And doesn't matter what political party you side with or what, but we are all one. We're all Americans, and we should be proud of our flag. And I hope that we swing back that way, because I think we're suffering as a country because of lack of patriotism, lack of service.
Well, I tell you, Jose, I think the where we can turn to find the lesson in how that is done is our military and is our veteran community, because you all have a lot of different sayings, but I think one is we all bleed green, or and there's a tremendous amount of unity. And even though there are different services and there are rivalries and there are spirited debate, everybody, as you said, does understand that they're fighting for the same flag, the same cause. And that's why I enjoy working with veterans so much, is because there is that ability to see past certain things that can be petty toward the larger issues, the more important things. And when you've seen the kinds of things our veterans have, when you've made the kinds of sacrifices that you and your fellow veterans have, Jose, you can't help but be inspired. And they know how to come together as one and treat each other with a common respect. And so that's what we do at Freedom Alliance is help them out. And we do that in a variety of ways. And if it's all right, I'm going to talk about one of them, and that's our scholarship program. And our scholarship program provides tuition for the sons and daughters of military heroes. These are kids who've had a parent that was killed or permanently disabled in military service. And since 9/11, the attacks of September 11, 2001, 20 years ago, Freedom Alliance has now awarded more than $20 million in college scholarships. So we've helped out more than 2,000 individual students. Those 2,000 students have each received multiple scholarships, and we've given out over $20 million. But I'll tell you, we're just getting started, because as you know, if if you've deployed, generally speaking, you are a young person. You are 18 to 22, 23 years old, the people who are doing the fighting. And if you're married and you have kids, those kids are very young. So those heroes who gave their lives back in 2002, 2003, 4, 5, their kids were only 2, 3, 4 years old at the time. But now in 2021, those kids are becoming college age, and we're here to help them and continue to help many more as the years go by.
Yeah, this person here says it perfectly. Eric Kober, thank you, Freedom Alliance. That's amazing. And I mean, we're obviously going to go get neck deep into Freedom Alliance now because I did some research, and I went through the site. Like I said, I just kept reading it. I couldn't stop. I was so engrossed with all the information. And again, like I said earlier, it's, there's a whole bunch of organizations out there that are doing amazing work, but you guys aren't just doing one thing. You're doing like all these things. And so let's talk about Freedom Alliance from a standpoint of how it got started. And then let's start talking about all the different things that you guys do besides scholarship.
Sure. Well, Freedom Alliance was founded in 1990, and it was founded by a gentleman you mentioned earlier, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, a United States Marine, served for 22 years in the Marines, a Vietnam veteran. And so a lot of the work that we do now is really inspired by that Vietnam generation, and more specifically what happened to that Vietnam generation. And just as a quick aside, we all know how poorly they were treated. Congressman Dan Crenshaw of Texas recently just introduced in the Congress a resolution to encourage the President of the United States to apologize to Vietnam veterans for how they were treated, apologize on behalf of the country. So the work that we do at Freedom Alliance really has in mind how Vietnam veterans were treated. And we know they weren't treated well, and we don't want that to ever happen again. So that's why we do the work that we do, helping families, helping combat veterans, helping active duty, and doing it across a variety of platforms. Because we want our veterans to be held in high esteem. We want them to get the care that they need, and we want them to be able to come back and integrate and get jobs and rehabilitate to the best that they're able to do.
Yeah, that's my uncle was a Vietnam veteran, and he told me stories about how they told him to not wear their uniform. But it's, everybody who's ever served knows that uniform or not, you can tell the GIs, the haircut, the blue jeans and tennis shoes during my era, it's obvious they couldn't hide it. And he remembers being spit on and things like that. And I know among the veteran community, there is we always, when we meet Vietnam veterans, it's always, hey, thank you for your service. Welcome home. Something that they didn't get, when they were active. And so one thing I didn't know that I've learned about this just in the preparation for this podcast tonight with you as our guest was I didn't realize Oliver North had been in Vietnam and then, continued to serve and to this day continues to serve community and our members. But that was pretty amazing. I didn't realize that his service went that far back.
Yeah, he was in Vietnam, Silver Star, 2 Purple Hearts. He's an American hero, and to me, he's a friend. He's a mentor. He's somebody who is very important in my life. I've worked with him now for over 20 years, and I think it's fair to say we've done some pretty good things together. So it's an honor to have him in my life. But he started Freedom Alliance, and one of the programs that was important to him and remains very important to him was our scholarship program, which I just mentioned. And that was founded. The organization was founded at the time of the first Gulf War, and that war thankfully was short-lived. So it wasn't in the front page of the newspapers for only maybe a few months, and then the country moved on, and so the organization, we having just gotten started, we went through a few years of just trying to find our right place, and then some years later I got involved, and a few years after I got involved came September 11th, 2001, and we just kind of went from there. So in addition to the scholarship program, we decided that we wanted to help out veterans, and we put together a few programs and just kept adapting and changing up what we were doing to fit the current needs of the deployed troops and the veterans, and that's what we've been doing. So at different points, early on we were collecting foam cards and sending them overseas, but then when communications adapted and improved, that was no longer necessary. We've always been sending care packages to troops wherever they are in the world. At a lot of points, we held what we called appreciation dinners for both troops who were deploying and troops who were returning from deployment. Took them out to the best steakhouses in their community and just told them how grateful we were. And then, as wounded troops kept coming back in big numbers, we started putting together programs to help them through their rehabilitation. And where we are now in that, Jose, is many combat veterans are at a point in their rehabilitation where they're really struggling with what I call emotional or moral injuries, spiritual injuries. And these are what I describe as an affliction of the heart. It might even be an affliction of the soul. And it results because as veterans, you're in combat and you see things or experience things that are contrary to God's law, what you learned in Sunday school. And it can bring on, you confront the worst of the worst. And this particular enemy, Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others, have used women and children as terrorists, as suicide bombers. They've been tortured, beheadings, burning people alive. And so when our troops see those kinds of things, they can't help but be impacted in their heart, because that's not the way things are supposed to be. Nobody should have to see those things. But those kinds of injuries are suppressed for many years because the physical injuries take primacy. And they have to spend years in rehabilitation and surgeries and everything else. So we're at a point now where, having gone through the physical rehabilitation, many of these emotional injuries or spiritual injuries are starting to surface. And if we don't address them, they can result in feelings of guilt, remorse, sin, feeling like they're not having a purpose in life. And these are the kinds of issues that Freedom Alliance is working with our combat veterans on most. The way we do that is to bring veterans together, get them out on hunting and fishing trips, and then create an environment where counseling can be had, conversation can be had, mentorship and accountability to one another. And it is really a heartwarming thing to be able to see veterans identify what is impeding their rehabilitation in this way, and overcoming it and getting to a point where they get themselves right with God, where they feel good about that, and improve those relationships within their family. So I've gone on for a long time, but it's because I'm passionate about it, and I feel strongly about it. And I'll stop there.
No. This is what people need to hear, really, because I really, since I started researching this, really so strong, and I hope that, I look forward to. I told Julie, I said I really look forward to some collaboration in the future, because this is something that is really passionate to me. I'm a non-combat veteran. So I don't understand all those things that our guys came back with. I know my friends, I have friends that, and I mean, I'm not naive. I understand the concept of what they went through. I understand what my dad and my uncle went through for sure, firsthand, undiagnosed PTSD for both of them, I'm sure. And so, and then some of my friends now, that even some of them who have even, attempted suicide. And it's hard to understand that there's actually people that want to address these issues, because one of my friends, he's on right now, Brian Gibson, he's one of these guys who has put a gun in his mouth, and again, God, rescued him from that grip. And I think as long as we can continue to focus on the fact that there is an alternative, maybe we make an impact on that number. And honestly, I think the number 22 is probably very conservative. I think that number is probably larger than we think it is.
Yeah, I tell you, Jose, the Pentagon just released their annual report on suicides, and they increased dramatically. And one of the events that has caused a lot of anxiety and these issues to surface or resurface in veterans was the event at the end of the summer where we left Afghanistan and did so in a way that many veterans, if not most, felt like it was not an honorable way to leave. It was not the way they intended for our country to leave, and it was something that left them feeling down, depressed, angry, and we saw that in the number of calls that went out to the Veterans Crisis Hotline, the number of calls that came into Freedom Alliance and so many other veterans organizations that deal with these kinds of issues. They spiked, and veterans are still feeling that way months later, and we have to address that. The issue is at that time that the president said this war is over. And in some respects, that's true. But to a large degree, no, it is not. Mr. President, you are wrong. The war is not over, especially for those who fought it, who sacrificed in it, who came home with injuries, who are still feeling the physical pain, the emotional guilt. And until those veterans are rehabilitated or feeling better and able to put these issues behind them, the war will continue. And I say that because we as a country have got to come to understand a more holistic time frame or framework of what war is. It's not just the troops getting on the plane at the front end and deploying and going overseas. Before they ever get on that plane, they have to enlist. They have to train in basic training. They have to go through AIT or the specific training for whatever their MOS is going to be. Then when they get a specific mission, they have to have additional training for that. So all of that time is time away from their families, time where they're doing training that is very difficult and dangerous. You have death, you have injury in training. And then you get over and you do the deployments and you go into combat, which we all have kind of an understanding of, even if we're just seeing it through TV. But then they get home, and a lot of people say, okay, well, now that they're home, it's over, it's done. No, it's not. It continues because where they had to fight the Taliban and ISIS and everything else, they get home, they got to fight the VA and they got to fight the bureaucracy. And when they separate from military service, getting their paycheck to transfer from the military to the veterans is a struggle all in itself. And some of these things, people just don't think about. And then you got to worry about surgeries and rehab and all the rest of, and all the pain that goes with it. And so that has to be a part of our national conversation when it comes to national defense and what it takes for a country to defend itself and care for those who put themselves in that position to defend our nation.
That's yeah. I mean, that you hit all the strings that that make my heart, sing. I mean, we this, and I don't want to. This, you're right. The president needs to take ownership of the fact that just because he says it's over doesn't mean it's over. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of people, guys that I know personally, that were so distraught over the way we left, and guys that had gotten past the atrocities of war. They had resettled in society. They were doing good, and this was just like opening an old wound, wide open. And so it's just amazing what you guys are doing, because it's exactly what our guys need. And our guys and gals, I mean, it's not just not just men, but
that's true enough. We just had a huge fishing tournament out in Southern California with our partners at War Heroes on Water, and we had several female teams out there, and they're going through the same kinds of issues, because when you think about it, we've worked with a number of females now who have been on the female engagement teams, the FETs, and these are females who are part of a combat unit or attached to a combat unit, who did the very specific tasks of providing security or interrogations or pat downs, checkpoints for females in Afghanistan and Iraq too, but I think it was more in Afghanistan, working with the children. And that was dangerous. And there was a lot of emotional injury that comes out of that, because, in some cases, when you interrogate these females and then they are punished by the Taliban afterwards for perhaps inadvertently giving up information or explicitly giving up information, and these females have feel a sense of responsibility for that. And whether that's true or not, that's what they feel. And it is very difficult for them to get over that, to see the kinds of things. And I talked about the atrocities, and that's even worse in the case of females and the children. And it was our female soldiers that saw that more than anybody else. So they're dealing with the same kind of moral injury that the guys are, and so we're working with them as well. But it was even true in the summer of 2020, when we saw the demonstrations in the streets and the marches and buildings being burned and things like that. Those kinds of images on America's television sets made our veterans feel like they were in a war zone again. Not all of them, but many of them. And we heard those kinds of stories. So we have to be mindful of what's going on in our country that's taking its toll on the emotions of those who have fought to defend this nation.
Yeah, you guys are just amazing. I'm not going to stop saying that. And I definitely, if you're watching, if you're just tuning in, you can see the information of Tom's organization, Freedom Alliance. He's the president, and you'll see all of the social media. I encourage you to reach out to the website, go to their social media, see what their mission's about. We have a great resource today in the president of that resource. And we're going to continue to talk about a few more things about that resource, because I know there's other things too. But one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, I know we've talked about our veterans, but what are some of the things that you guys are doing for the families of our service members who don't come home?
Yeah, so for the fallen, and our work there primarily is through our scholarship program. So we're taking care of the kids whose parents were killed in military service. And what's interesting about our scholarship is if you're you're a student and your father was killed in military service, you're going to qualify for our scholarship. But if you've got a younger brother or sister or two or three, each of them will qualify for our scholarship as well if they choose to go to college. So a family, a service member who had 3 or 4 kids, we're going to be able to do a fair amount for that family over the years, because each kid could qualify for 4 scholarships in a traditional 4-year school program, and each of those siblings could do as well. But Jose, it's more than that scholarship. I mean, that's the financial aspect of it, is helping take care of that very high cost of a college education and pursue those dreams. But the other thing that we try to do is get as many of these kids on scholarship as possible, so that we can get to know them and that we can help them out and we can bring them into our events. So that the events that I talked about where our combat veterans are getting out and being with one another, we've begun incorporating our scholarship students into those events, so that you've got these grizzly veterans and these young college students whose parents have sacrificed so much, and you get them working with one another and talking to one another, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is. We have retreats for our scholarship students to get them to visit the final resting place of their parent and bring them together. It's the same dynamic with our students as it is with our veterans. They don't necessarily know each other because it's such a unique experience. But when you bring these students together and they have this common bond, they form friendships instantaneously, and they last for as long as we've been doing it now. So they become very good friends. They help each other out. They call each other on the days when their dad lost their lives. They call them on birthdays and holidays, and they become a support system in and amongst themselves. So that's very important. We get these kids out whenever we can, talking to civic organizations, so that they can talk about the hero that their father was and remains. As long as we can keep that parent's memory alive, that's what it's all about. So these students who make up our scholarship fund, they are a living memorial, if you will, to these heroes that fought and sacrificed for us. And so those are some of the things that we do for the families of the fallen.
That's absolutely amazing. I know you covered it at the beginning of the session here, but you're in Tampa giving away these all-terrain wheelchairs.
Yeah.
What else does Freedom Alliance do? Because you guys do everything.
Well, we do I think a pretty good amount, but we try to do it. We try not to take on more than we can handle, and the Lord's going to give us only what we can handle. So we try and do it as well as we can. But yeah, today I was at Veterans Memorial Park in Tampa. It's a beautiful place. It's got a memorial for Iraqi freedom, for enduring freedom. It's got a Purple Heart Memorial, a Medal of Honor Memorial, and so many others. It's a beautiful place that is a wonderful tribute to those who have served our country. And there we had 2 honored veterans, both of Iraqi freedom. James Donaldson, who was originally from Utah, moved to Florida, a double amputee. He was in Iraq, fought in the Sunni Triangle, and found himself in a vehicle that was hit by an IED, had his hand blown up and lost both of his legs. So we gave him an all-terrain wheelchair so that he can get out on Florida's beautiful beaches and be with his kids and get them around and be mobile and be more independent. And the other service member was Johnny Flores, and similar story. He grew up in New York but moved down to Florida. And he was here in Florida when 9/11 hit. But having grown up in New York, he had been to the World Trade Center. He had, walked around Lower Manhattan, and so it really impacted him. He joined the Army. He deployed to Iraq, and he lost his leg. He was in an explosion, and he was actually able to to medically retire, and he retained both of his legs, but one just went through surgery after surgery after surgery, and it was 12 years later that he had to make the decision to have that leg removed. So he also got one of these wheelchairs. So that's one of the programs that we have to improve the mobility of amputees and guys with spinal injuries and things like that, so that they can engage in the daily activities. We're also giving away some vehicles, and we've done some mortgage-free homes with our partners, and we like. Jose, we like to work with families on a continuing basis. So we want to get to know them and help them out and have them be part of our organization in a special way. So that we have had cases where we might send a care package to somebody who's deployed, and then if they come home and they're in the hospital, they might get a grant or a visit from us in the hospital. And then as their rehabilitation continues, we get them out to one of these dinners, or they get a chair. Their kids might qualify for a scholarship. If we can help them over a period of time and be a part of their lives, that is something that is very meaningful to us. We've got an extraordinary team, a very dedicated team, most of whom have military service, who understand that kind of sacrifice. Their families, they are Gold Star families, some of them. So that's the way we like to work, and that's why we have a variety of programs, so that we can work with families over a course of years, as opposed to once and it be over.
That's absolutely amazing. I'm gonna throw another comment up here from Eric Christian Kober, and I agree with him. I know that my friend Brian, he's also has an organization called Project Die Hard, and they're doing work in the same space. How can anybody listening to this? How can any of my listeners? This goes out to Apple Podcast, and it'll go out to all the main podcasts as audio only. So, as well as video on YouTube, it'll be there forever. But how can people listening, or they see the podcast, or they hear it and they see your website and they go to your website and they're not sure how they can, what is the best way that people listening can support Freedom Alliance?
Sure. I think, one of the best ways to find us is on the web. Our webpage is freedomalliance.org, and through there they can make a donation. We love to have the support of the American public, and that's how we're able to provide this support. So freedomalliance.org is the best way. And in addition, through that website, there is an application on there. It's a universal application, so that a veteran who needs help can fill it out and tell us the different kinds of things that we offer that might apply to them. So whether it's a donation or a veteran or military family seeking help, both of those avenues are available on the website. Folks can find us on Facebook. If you're looking for me, I've got accounts on Twitter, Tom Kilgannon 3 on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And I'd love to engage with people either on Twitter or LinkedIn or through the organization's social media. So, I'm new to that. I've just got on, but the Freedom Alliance has been on Facebook, and we've got Instagram and Twitter, and we're across several platforms. But it's a wonderful way to engage because, then they get to see great podcasts like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you a little bit of my admiration for Colonel North, Lieutenant Colonel North. Back in the day, way back when he was, going through the hearings and all that stuff, and I don't remember where I got them from. I have no clue to this day, but I have one that remains. I had 2 posters of Oliver North, and one of them said, "By golly, I'm for Ollie," and the other one said Oliver North for president. And I still have the one that says Oliver North for president. And so to think that this started way back then, with a vision that he had, and a vision that you are just taking into the next, generation of people, literally, is nothing but admirable. And you don't have to be a veteran to serve your country, and you are absolutely 100% living proof of that. The things that
Well,
you're doing.
yeah, I mean, Jose, isn't it amazing how the Lord puts wonderful people in our paths? And I've had the great blessing in my career to work with just amazing people. I worked for a great member of Congress. I worked for Pat Buchanan in his first run for the presidency, and I've worked with Ali for well over 20 years. And as I said at the outset, Ali and I. He's such an important part of my life, and somebody I care about very much, and somebody I've learned a great deal from. And just the admiration and respect. We don't have enough time in the program to be able to say it all, but he's a great American. And what he's done here at Freedom Alliance in founding the organization and allowing a dopey civilian like me to take the lead on a day-to-day basis and run with it is tremendous. And he really wants this organization to live on for many, many years and to continue to do this kind of work for a long time to come. And if we can get the support of your listeners and your viewers, and I think we'll be able to do that, because this country's finest days are ahead of us. They're not behind us. I feel strongly about that. Things are getting better. We've got our challenges. There's no question about it. We've got a lot of hard work to do, and we need to get good people, not just in government, but starting businesses and back in the church pews. And when we do that, this country is going to turn around. And so we want Freedom Alliance to be at or near the front of that process and make it all happen and be a catalyst for good in this country, and to remember, to recognize, and to serve those who have served.
I'll tell you this, that Lieutenant Colonel's North integrity, was unscathed with whatever he had to go through in his day. And with the work that you're doing, Tom, as president of Freedom Alliance, you are ensuring that he doesn't just have an organization that he started. It's a legacy. It is something that will live way past me, you, and everyone else that's alive right now, because what you're doing is absolutely incredible. And it goes to the foundation of how we should be treating our veterans, the very men and women who go out and serve our country and risk their life, some of them giving their life for the freedoms and the things that we get to enjoy sitting here, behind a computer and not worried about getting shot when we walk out of the room because of something we said. And so I applaud you. The work you're doing is amazing. And you have a supporter in Third Day Coffee Seguin, a permanent supporter for sure. And I know that many others that are watching the show are. I've had a lot of great comments that are scrolling through as we're going here, and I just showcased a few of them. But I just want to take a second and just thank you from the bottom of my heart, not just for the work you're doing, but for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us. I'm a little fish in a huge pond. But it's very clear that we are very like-minded, and I look forward to supporting you guys any way I can.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and let me just say again, it's been an honor to be on and a pleasure. I enjoyed this conversation, and I could go on all night, but I'd like to say a word to those listening, because I know many of them are veterans, if I may, and to all of those who've served our country. And especially those who have served in the last 20 years in Afghanistan or Iraq. I want you to know that what I feel is, and what I'm about to say is backed up by so many by all of the supporters at Freedom Alliance, and that is, you have served your country honorably. You are among our finest diplomats. You went overseas, you confronted evil, you faced down the enemy, you put your life on the line, you volunteered to serve, and you should be proud of that. You accomplished your mission. If you went over in the very early years, your job was to get rid of Al Qaeda, and you did that. If you went a little bit later on, it was to do away with the Taliban, and you were successful there. If it was later, it was to train the Afghani army, and you did that. It was the politicians in Washington who failed you and who have failed us. Every veteran needs to be proud of their service, know that you served with honor, know that you have support back here at home, and we're going to do whatever we can to help you out. Our job is to make sure that your service is never forgotten by a grateful nation. So God bless you. We love you. And I hope I get to meet as many of you as possible. And Jose, I want to have a cup of coffee with you in the morning one of these days and taste the great coffee that you put together, because you've got a great product and a great company that's going to be doing a whole lot more in the years to come.
I appreciate that. I definitely look forward to that. You mentioned earlier that you're going to be in San Antonio. That is in my backyard, and I will definitely coordinate so that we can be there and have a cup of coffee, because I need to shake your hand. The work you're doing is just, it's exactly what needs to be happening right now for our community in the times that we're in right now. And so I absolutely applaud you for that. And you're creating a legacy, and I'm just so honored to have a little tiny slither. Years later, I'll look back at this and say, I remember when I had to interview Tom, and look at what Freedom Alliance has done, and look for how many brothers and sisters that they've taken care of, and that's going to be that's just going to be one of those, sit on the back porch with a good cup of coffee and just grin and just know that there are great people in this world that are really trying to help people other than themselves.
Well, amen. And so reach out to us through freedomalliance.org. Find me on Twitter or LinkedIn. And I would just, finish up by saying to all our Marines, a happy belated birthday and a happy Thanksgiving to everybody listening and watching. And God bless you all. This is a great country. Let's keep fighting for it.
Amen. Tom, I'm going to put you in the green room for just a second. Don't go away. I'm going to close the show, and I'll be right back to you.
Sounds good.
All right, stand by. All right, folks, what an incredible guest. A little choked up. I mean, it's exactly the things that we want to do with our mission. It's exactly the kinds of things that people that we associate our business with want to do, to serve, and we've gotten so far away from that in our country. And I encourage you to reach out to Freedom Alliance. Please go look at their mission. They have the resources and they need the financial backing from people like us and our listeners and people that are in our circles to continue to do the great work they're doing. So hit up our website. We have lots of stuff going on. Stay tuned this coming week. We're going to have a lot of lives with our Christmas basket and whatnot. But, I'm going to leave you with this. Treat each other the way God intended us to treat one another, with love, kindness, and respect. Until we see you next week, God bless.